Okay, everyone, we are at the top of the hour, and I will go ahead and get us started today. Want to start by thanking you for joining us. Thank you for putting safety at the forefront of your professional development. Want to let you know that all lines will be muted for the duration of this webinar, but please feel free to reach out to us through the chat feature. We welcome your questions and your feedback related to the discussion today. And as a reminder, the webinar will be recorded and available soon on nar.realtor/safety. And as we begin today, it's very important for me personally to send support, and I know that you will join me in sending support to one of our own that was brutally attacked while holding an open house in Lynchburg, Virginia over the weekend. Thankfully, the last update that I've heard is that the agent is in a stable condition, and I continue to send up prayers for her continued recovery, and I know you all will join me in rallying around her and lifting her up as she faces the road of recovery. Tell you a little bit about myself. It's quite humbling to have my face up there on the screen, but that's pre-COVID hair, so I'm glad you're seeing that version of me than right now. But I am a realtor, a proud RE/MAX elite agent right here in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I, in 2017, founded the Beverly Carter Foundation, and I founded it in response to losing my sweet mom. And also, I have been very fortunate and honored this year to serve as the acting past chair of the newly created NAR Safety Advisory Committee. And, you know, all those things aside, I think probably most important is that I am my mother's son. Losing my best friend, my mama, Beverly Carter, has driven a passion for the safety of all real estate professionals within me. And it is my honor to present to you today things that I have learned along my journey. As I mentioned, the Beverly Carter Foundation, if you're not familiar with who my sweet mom is, that's her. That's Beverly Carter. She lost her life at the hands of two people posing as clients in the fall of 2014. And I founded the Beverly Carter Foundation in response to the needs that I observed personally for heightened safety awareness within this industry that we all love. I think it's important to note, and it's a bit uncomfortable to admit, but even to the point of that precious agent in Virginia that was attacked this past weekend, is that what happened is not an isolated event. It happens, unfortunately, way more often than we like, and certainly more often than we even know within our industry. I've had the distinct pleasure of meeting many, many agents through the years that have been assaulted, harassed, and stalked, even raped, or victims of theft. And it is the purpose and the privilege of the Beverly Carter Foundation to help empower you to keep that from ever happening again. I want to talk to you now about our safety journey over the next little bit together. These are the quadrants of things that we will discuss. I'll start by talking to you about my sweet mom. And as I've had 5.5 years to tell her story and to really think about her story, and the more I learned about the industry and about safety, the key takeaways. I'll transition to something I think that you're going to be very excited about, and that will be for consumer safety and awareness. So not just for us, but also for those we serve. And then I'm pretty excited to share with you some best tips that I've learned related to existing tech. You probably already own this technology or the features, and I want to make sure you are aware of them so that you can turn it on. And then lastly, we will wrap with talking about safety in the new normal, things that have stood out to me since we've been in this pandemic. And then we will close today's session with taking the questions that you submit through the chat feature. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have. And so you may be wondering the significance of this house, of this street address, of this appointment time. And I'm showing this for a very purposeful reason. This is sadly, tragically, the site of the showing where my mom lost her freedom. This is where my mom was taken from me. And I show it in this way because without that context, this house, this address, these bullet points of this property, they look just like any other day, right? It's just like any other property that we have the pleasure and the privilege of selling or showing. I want to tell you about the day that my mom was taken from me. 6 years, it will be 6 years on September the 25th. It was an absolutely gorgeous day. So, you know, when we get to the end of summer and we're tired of the oppressive heat, and it was a beautiful fall-like day, low humidity for once here in the South. And for my mom, it was a great day. It was a typical real estate day when there's not a pandemic going on, because she was out. She had an affiliate luncheon. She had been in her office with talking to other agents. She won $50 at the luncheon. All around a good day. Around 5:15 that evening, my mom kind of began to wind down her day, and she did like so many of us do. You know, you call your spouse to let them know what the rest of your day looks like. And my mom called my dad and said that she would be showing this property. He knew exactly, this was the community that my parents lived in, so he was familiar with where she would be when she gave him the address. She told him she would end the day by showing this property, and then she would use her $50 that she won at that luncheon to buy them dinner. And I can't emphasize enough that it was a Thursday like any other Thursday, right? And in so many ways, I know we all long for the days that we can get back to just showing property and picking up dinner and getting back to some normalcy. But what my mom didn't know is that the clients that she had agreed to meet at this property, the clients that she had been working with for almost 2 weeks, and finding out how she may serve them, finding out the types of properties that they would be interested in. She had no idea that those clients, a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, that they weren't looking to buy a home. All the while, they had researched her. They had perhaps, we'll never know, but they had identified her by her marketing and then conducted a number of internet searches on her to determine if she could be wealthy enough to supply a ransom if they were to kidnap her. And what started as this beautiful day, I even remember personally what a beautiful day it was, ended tragically, horrifically. I still can't believe it. And while those bad guys, as I call them, they had intended to obtain ransom money, when that didn't go as planned, they ended my mom's life. And she was killed in an attempt to cover up their initial crimes. And you see, as I tell you in just a moment about the key takeaways from my mom's case, you'll find that she did so many things right, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to save her life. And when their plan started to unravel so quickly because of the things she had done right, they chose to end her life, stating that they wanted her gone, which was a quote from the husband in the January 2016 trial. Whenever it always comes back to, why my mom? Why Beverly? The bad guy himself, the husband of this duo, has said multiple times that she was targeted because she was a rich broker that worked alone. And y'all, I am not here to instill fear or paranoia, and I can promise you that the my mom would never want that from me. Talk about a thump on the head from heaven. But there is an uncomfortable truth associated with being in this industry, and that is that people perceive us as being just wildly rich. And my mom was no exception. I'll tell you, within this industry that my mom loves so much, her murder did catapult a national conversation about safety. And I appreciate our industry taking it so seriously. And I hope that you all know that our family will be forever grateful for the support we receive, not only from the association, but from each of you individually. I'd like to transition to talk about some key takeaways from my mom's story that I hope that you'll think about in your business. And the first is that bad guys fit no definable profile. I know my mom's story always resonates with people because, they say things like, well, I would never think that doing business with a woman could be dangerous. And personally, I'll tell on myself, I have found myself in situations that I just don't associate, violence or a scary situation with women. And so we all need to take a step back, leave our preconceived notions about what a bad guy is at the door, and just consistently screen all of the people that we work with. Second is that I hope that you will insist upon an in-person pre-showing buyer consultation in a public place. This could have been a great deterrent of these bad guys in my mom's case. So one thing that I wanted to, so we were talking about takeaways from my mom's story, and one thing that I hope that you will do next is to obtain identification and share it with colleagues in a secure location. I so wish that in so many cases that I've heard that agents had implemented processes for not only obtaining IDs, but finding, a trusted colleague within their office that they can share it with, which really, not only so that we know who we're working with, but that, it adds accountability, and if something were to happen, people would know exactly who to go question. And so easily with identification, in my mom's case, she would have been able to identify that the husband of the husband and wife was a 7-time felon. And, easily, just as though, and it's an eerie thing with my mom's case, is that these bad people had used the internet to research her. They had gone to Google, they had gone to her Facebook profile, they had gone to property records to determine the property value of the home that she lived in. We should use that same technology to gather whatever information we can about the people that we seek to serve. The last 4 takeaways is to do as my mom did and to share your itinerary with your trusted colleagues and with your family. I'm going to talk to you when we get to the technology portion about a way that you can automate some of this using what you already have. In my mom's case, that there were certain elements of the crime that were witnessed firsthand by the next door neighbor. And so, real estate aside, I hope that as you sit down with your family this evening for dinner, that you will encourage them that if they see something suspicious in your neighborhood, and of course we're all home more now, that they will, speak up, say something to you so that you could report it if it's your kids. And then we hear about this often, and that's to keep your back to the door, let your clients go first. Unfortunately, in my mom's case, as she was taken and stunned with a taser by surprise as she was taking a photograph in the property. So I hope that you will think of her and think about how quickly these attacks can happen when our backs are turned. And lastly is to trust your instincts. This is so easily dismissed whenever we override it with our logic and with our kindness. But I hope that you will get back in touch with your instinct. I had the distinct honor of being on a webinar last week, and one of the presenters spoke to her internal instinct and her commitment to situational awareness. She called it her spiritual eye, and that really resonated with me. And wanted to pass that along to you in case it will with you. Next, I want to talk to you about consumer safety and awareness. As I've traveled across North America giving safety presentations to agents, there are training topics and areas for improvement that are largely consistent everywhere I go. You know, agents say, we want to see more of this, more of that. And so one of those things is that, you know, so many of us agree that everyone needs safety awareness. And as your client's trusted advisor, you have the power to improve the safety outcomes for all, which leads me to a very exciting announcement. So you guys are getting this right off the press. There are 50 new safety tips available for you to share with your clients. You can use them, you know, probably the easiest way is to build a social media campaign so that you can apply, you know, these expert tips with your voice to show your commitment to the safety of your clients, your potential clients, and to your community as a whole. So a little bit about these tips that are out here on nar.realtor/safety is that they have topics that range from COVID-19 to data security to rule safety, and then what perhaps I'm most excited about is this consumer safety awareness. Because as we all work together to help get the message out in a very professional way about safety risk and concerns, not only that apply for us as agents, but also for home, you know, buyers and sellers, it really helps everyone. So coming up, I'm going to show you how you can build your own campaign around this, because I can promise you I am a full believer in this, but I'm not trying to make a ton of work for you. So I'll show you how I personally have created a campaign and am doing my part to make the world a safer place. And then you'll notice that some of these are, you know, even like this one that you see on the screen here is, while it's good for us as agents, you know, and it's listed as a realtor safety tip, even just sharing these, it's not only good for the agents that you're connected with, but they're also good for the broader public as well. If you're new to the industry, or perhaps you've been around a while and just the noise of everything, this never made its way to you. And that is this, there's a video, and it's called Real Estate Safety and You. And so as, you know, there are so many of us that we are trying to fine-tune how to have a safety conversation with our buyers or sellers without it being so awkward. And so this is an easy way for you to do, you know, just a soft touch, whether you're sharing this through your social channels or you want to sit down and, sit, elbow to elbow when it's safe to show your clients, or simply emailing it to clients. You have lots of options here with this award-winning video. It's out there, and although it's been around for a couple of years, it's evergreen. It's very well done, and I want to make sure that you're aware of this great resource. All right, so this is how I do, so I must admit, I need simple social media campaigns that aren't going to require me to have to get in every single day and do a bunch of work, because we're busy people, right? And so what I do, and NAR has been so great for all these tips, they have them to where they're sorted by topic, and you can go and grab the ones, you can download all of the ones that you want, that you feel like you're passionate about or that your community could benefit from. And I take those image files and I copy and paste them into a table. And I plan when I'm going to do it. So you could, you could say Safety Saturday or Safety Sunday or Wisdom Wednesday, and once a week on that day, launch these tips. And so, I've learned about this type of, creating all of this content at one time. If those of you that know about our wonderful Katie Lance that teaches social media for real estate agents, I learned about this approach through her great courses. And then I go ahead, excuse me, so that I know I'm going to post this, but it's also really important for me to apply my own personality and my own commitment to it. I don't want it to seem like I'm just sharing something that someone else created. So by doing this through my Facebook business page, I can go out and I can schedule all of these with my quotes on the days I want them to launch. And it truly, in one way, you truly can set it and forget it. The only thing that you'll need to do, of course, is just monitor your social so that you can appropriately interact with anyone that may comment on it. But really, really excited for you all to see these new tips. They're hot off the press, just published on NAR.realtor/safety just at the end of last week. So you guys will have the heads up. You can go ahead and get them out there, and everyone will think that you created them and you're on the front end. All right, so you say, well, we've got the tips, we've got the video. I want more client-focused safety content. You know, I want something that I can print and give them. I want something I can email. I want to know how to have conversations with my sellers about putting away, you know, valuable items before we do any showings, or we do have the house photographed. You know, what are the things that I need to say? Well, NAR.realtor/safety, you can see it here on the slide, safety articles. There are these three that are out there that give you great content. So the first you can see is related to garage door safety tips. It's very timely, I think, right now because we're all home more, and the risk of you know, garage doors being especially if we're not following safety protocol and we're just leaving them open, great opportunity for home invasions and for theft of property. So I want you to be mindful of that. It could be a real value add right now for you and your clients. Next is having that safety talk, and it goes through all those things like valuable items, keeping your house, you know, secure, putting away locking away firearms, and just how to best navigate that in a very responsible way. And then lastly, just tips that you can share. You can create your own. I know so many of us have Canva accounts that we'd like to go and create our own. Canva has quickly become the go-to for creating social media sources for real estate, and NAR has all the tips for you. You can just easily apply them to your social strategy. All right, so let's transition a little bit and talk about using existing tech. And long before the economic and stressful challenges associated with this pandemic arose, like, I have been passionate about maximizing the tech that we already have. Call me cheap if you like, but we have so many great things at our disposal that we just need to learn about it and take a few minutes to turn it on to enable the features. And so I want to talk to you about some ways that might be creative ways for you to implement and enhance your current tech. And so the first thing is that it is important that you not only, we all, I think, can agree that we live by our calendar, but it could be, if you think about using it perhaps in just a slightly different way. So here's an example from, I have a great friend that's a safety evangelist, Jen, in Des Moines, and so I learned from her that I can go in, and as I'm blocking my calendar for showings, that I will title that calendar appointment with the client's names. And then within the actual appointment itself, I don't do a bunch of crazy, typing and making a lot of work for myself, but I will put the MLS numbers of the properties that I'm going to show. And it's real quick, real organized, and of course, it's important that I allow access to my calendar. So in my case, I use Gmail, so I'm on the Google suite. Super simple. Even if you're using, I know some agents are still rocking their AOL accounts from the 90s. God love you. But those even have the capability to share. If you have an Outlook account and so forth, you can most definitely share so that people will know where you are and the properties that you're going to show and who you'll be showing to. Another thing, and this is something that I think is really out of the box thinking whenever it comes to technology, and that is maintaining your contact records within your smartphone. And so here are some ideas. One, as you begin working with new clients, and say you are, if it's part of your process that you request their identification, they send that along. As long as your phone is secure, you know, through a password or Face ID, then, you know, save that ID as the profile, the contact photo, I should say, for that record. Nice placeholder for that. So that's just an idea. And then I also love this. The other tip is that you can put a note about, well, how did you meet this person? What was the lead source? Did you get this from an internet referral or an internet lead or a referral from a past client or a friend? And then you could also put in other personal type things that will, you know, not only serve as a safety resource, but really kind of serve as efficiency. So if you're out showing property to Jane and you want to ask her how her kids are doing, you have a quick resource to remind you of their names. So safety, efficiency, I love it. Also, the great thing about a contact is that if you establish a process, so two things here, you can either establish a process with someone in your office, whether that be an office manager, assistant, whoever it may be, that you could, every time you create a new client, or excuse me, contact record for a new client, that you easily share that, that record. Or if you have your account set up, whether that be an Apple or an Android product that is backing up your contacts with all your other information up into the cloud, that you have a trusted colleague that has a password that can access all those backups in case they ever need to get into those accounts. So love that. It's a great little tip. Now this one seems silly, and I want you guys to hang with me on this one because it sounds like we're being 13-year-olds, but I promise it's super efficient. This I learned, so I learned from some friends that they have a small team of a handful of agents. They're in Colorado Springs, and I learned from them that they established their own code because they were concerned that it's not always going to be that you can't get someone on the phone, and if you did get them on the phone, they didn't want to set up code words that, like, you know, bring me the red folder that some agents feel has been overused. So they established this code by simple use of emojis, and I think it's pretty brilliant. So if the broker or another team member just wants to check in somebody, they send the thumbs up, and then depending upon the two responses that you see there, that lets that person know very quickly, efficiently, that they're good, or that they would like a phone call or follow-up. Note, one thing that I love about this team is they take this stuff seriously. So as they were sitting telling me about it, they were fired up. They're like, now if they don't reply right back with one of those faces, I'm going to call them immediately. And then I'm also, because they all love and trust and have, it really does come down to trust, they have also enabled their GPS locations to always share their location, not just for a showing, but at all times with their team. And I love the trust that they built. I think it speaks to their work environment, and I love that they shared that so that we could all learn from it. So kudos to my friends in Colorado Springs for that. All right, so let's talk, and I don't want to lose you if you are not an iPhone person. We're going to hit Android right after this one, and then we're going to go on to other topics. But I want to make sure that you know about some underutilized smartphone safety features. And so one is the emergency SOS mode. And so one thing that I want you to know, you need to go into your settings and see where this has, because what will happen is, depending upon the region that you live in, most people, emergency SOS mode is going to automatically make a phone call to 911. And then after that phone call has been placed, it's going to send out alerts to every person that you have created and designated as an emergency contact. Now, something about this I think that's important for us to think about these features is that this isn't just about preparing for, you know, a bad guy. You know, there are all sorts of crazy things in this variety field industry that we're working in. So it could be a slip, a trip, a fall, a dog bite, you know, a medical emergency that could trigger these things. So I just want you to be mindful. It's just good to have it set up. One thing that I also would encourage you to do, regardless of your type of phone that you have, is to go in on the Apple devices. It's up under, you have to search under Health, but the medical ID alerts others that pick up your phone. The medical ID information is available actually from the lock screen. So this is good for, you know, they actually train emergency response teams that, you know, if someone's phone's there, see if they have this enabled. And so it gives them the heads up quickly, only if you set it up with your, you know, your blood type, if you have any allergies, if you're on any medications, and so forth. So I think that is a great thing to do. Something that we all should strive for, and I say this with a chuckle because we are known as the #1 industry of talking while we drive, and just know that the feature is there. This is something that we can all work toward. As an added bonus, something that I would like to see happen is, you know, if you do a lot of business while you drive, I really hope that you will consider hands-free. And I see a lot of agents across the country that are videoing themselves talking while they are driving down the road, and are really, it's just really dangerous. I'd like to see that stopped. And then lastly, whether it's your iPhone or your Android, I encourage you to turn on Find My iPhone. Not only is it good if your phone were to come up missing, but it's also, and this is my personal story, when my mom went missing, and one of the things we wanted to do was like, let's try to use the Find My iPhone. And we didn't have my mom's password to her Apple account. So we weren't able to easily get in and do that whole process of trying to find her iPhone, which could have led to the bad guy's house. So turn it on, and then also make sure you give to a trusted person your login information in case they ever need to get it. And then it's an added bonus, just to refer back to that team that I talked about with the emoji. You always have the ability to share your location, whether it's for a limited time or all the time, to share your location with someone. Of course, that takes constant communication and trust. You know, perhaps you don't want your spouse to know that you are stopping by the pub on the way home, but it's a great thing to do so that we can always check in on one another, those that we love, but definitely takes communication. All right, so a cool thing about Android is that those same features that I was just discussing about the Apple products, those are really available on Android as well. They're just called something different. So I want to build upon that. So keep all those tips in mind. And then one thing I like about the Android that I was interested to learn is that the emergency contacts can be added to the lock screen. So if someone that needs to pick up your phone to assist you, they can easily access those emergency contacts. And then also the Android has a quick ability, if you set it up, for you to quickly take your phone and to disable it into a lockdown mode so that no one else can access it. So I think that does have some practical application as well. Lots of features on our smartphones. I won't belabor them, but I want to make sure that everyone was aware of those. So before we start taking some questions, I want to talk to you about safety in the new normal. And if you're like me, you're sick of people saying new normal, so forgive me. But let's get right to it. Okay, first things first is that be advised. Scams are at an all-time high, and the Federal Trade Commission, and you may have seen the links about it or the news articles, there are so many scams right now that are targeting people that's saying, you know, mortgage assistance related to the pandemic and all that. So make sure that you have legit sources. I would start with the Federal Trade Commission. You can go out and find articles if you want to share that official government guidance for spotting these scams. But we definitely need to do our part in educating consumers so that they're not taken advantage of by these awful people and entities that would try to scam people out of money during this time. Next is something that I don't show a ton of property, and so it's not something that I had really been all that mindful of, and just recently I showed property over the weekend, and I thought back to the research that I had seen that had been done by SentryLock. So, and this applies to any lockbox that you may have. And so, research that they had conducted, or that they found, that this virus can live on plastic and stainless steel surfaces up to 70 hours. And I'm seeing in these real estate forums all across the country where we're seeing houses just being bombarded with showings. And if you can think about the ins and outs, and even though, you know, right here in Central Arkansas, we are trying to do our best to educate our buyers that as we tour properties where people are living, that we try not to touch, and if we do touch, we have sanitary wipes. But those lock boxes, please be mindful of this research conducted by SentryLock so that you can keep yourself safe. Something else that I did, so I was recently made aware of this. I actually did a little bit of shopping yesterday, and that is if you are in the need for PPE. And I'm not talking about just shoe covers and masks. Out on the NAR Realtor Team Store. So if you're not familiar with that website, it's narteamstore.realtor. And then if you do /COVID-19, there's this whole selection of PPE that is being offered to members at cost. So if you go out there, you'll find the prices are extremely reasonable because they're being offered to us at cost. There are customizable options if you want to put your logo, and based upon if you just want things, you know, with our R that we love for our Realtor R, there's one that's kind of small and discreet, or if you just want one that has it all over it, they have that too. But there's a lot of great stuff out there that you can get at cost. And not only for your own protection, but for the protection of your buyers and sellers. You could buy it in bulk. And not only shoe covers, but there's hand sanitizer, there's masks. So check that out. I just want to make sure you were familiar with that, because it was some of the best pricing I've seen, and for items that could be made specific to our industry. All right, and then I want to quickly just hit on this. There are, you know, our sellers are concerned, you know, if they're still living in the home, they're concerned about keeping their home virus free. And so one thing that we've had a lot of conversation here locally, and I hope that you have as well, about, you know, our duty as agents. You know, if we, you know, I personally will follow behind buyers and with my Clorox wipes, and you know, if I notice that they, you know, there is that, we see a door, we see a closet, we want to look inside of it. So I go behind and try to help keep things as sanitary as possible, and then whenever I reply to give the feedback to the listing agent, I like to, as a courtesy to that listing agent, let them know that we were very respectful of the health and wellness of those sellers, and we wore masks and wipe things down as appropriate. So I hope that you'll extend that same courtesy. All right, so I want to talk briefly about virtual consultations. You know, we preach in safety classes to the importance of meeting in a public place first, but it's tough to do that in today's environment, especially in some parts of the country that are just barely starting to open back up. The office isn't necessarily an option, and a coffee shop, you know, certainly isn't. So you can conduct these virtually. You know, this is something that you have to practice. Maybe get with other agents and try it. I will say, if you use a platform that you want to record the session so that you have it for future reference, then you likely will have to you know, get at least the minimum subscription, and there would be a fee likely involved in that. I hope that as you conduct your consultations, because I am so big on consistent processes that you will use a client profile form that ensures that every client's getting the same level of service, and of course does set baselines so that red flags will stand out more. And if you don't have access to a form, most brokerages already have one pre-done, but if you don't have access to a form that kind of walks you through asking those basic questions of your clients, one is available at nar.realtor/safety. And then, of course, if you go through the process of creating all of these things, it is important not only that you keep them secure, but also that you let others know who you're working with. Obtaining a copy of their ID, I talked to you about, I won't belabor this point because I talked to you about it with my mom. One thing that I want to encourage you to do is to, we talk so much about scripting in this industry, and work on how you request a copy of the ID. We don't have to be, I've heard agents that just, they take a very hard line in the sand and they don't use delicate words to ask for the ID. And in some ways I respect that, but I think that, so many of these people, it's just not the industry norm yet, sadly, to request ID, so I think we have to be very sensitive when we do so. Also, one thing I want to make sure that you do is that you, at a minimum, for the state that you live in and for the clients that you predominantly serve, that you go to, if you live in Arkansas, go to Arkansas and say, Arkansas driver's license components, do a quick search, and there are state resources for every state that I've done the search that shows you the components of a valid driver's license within your state. I know we're all going toward the real ID, and so you could do the same type of search to identify the components of these new real IDs that we're doing as well. But it's just another layer of, okay, not only are you asking for it, but then do you know what to look for to ensure that it is a real ID. All right, so more than we probably like, we are home and home and home. And so not only are we home more, but our clients are home more, and just for the fact that we are there more often, that lends itself to increased risk associated with safety and at home. I want to raise your awareness to some uncomfortable truths from the FBI that 1 in 5 homes will be the victim of a break-in or home invasions. 85% of burglars case homes before a home invasion. 50% of burglars portray servicemen before a home invasion. 94% of burglars are high on drugs when they are invading a home. 30% of violent assaults take place during a home invasion. 60% of rapes take place during a home invasion. And lastly, 33% of burglars enter the home through an unopened door or window. So just right there, from those facts alone, we can see the importance of not getting lax with we're home all the time, let's not keep things, as locked up as we normally would, or take the precautions that we normally would. So one thing that I want to talk about quickly is the establishment of baselines, and that is, an important point too. As we're home, we need to have routines. We need to know what our neighborhood is like, whether that, a baseline could be the types of cars that we see in our neighborhood and in our neighbors' driveways, the types of activity, whether it be, those out exercising. What does your neighborhood look like as a baseline? And by noticing these baselines, things will stand out when they're not right. I hope that you all establish routines. Maybe you have, different roles within your family. Maybe dad makes sure all the doors are locked, and one of the kids has responsibilities for other things. But routines every day to make sure that your home is secure and that, as appropriate, your exterior lighting is on and off. I want to also encourage you to, and this is, I know it's eerie and we don't like thinking like criminals because we're not criminals, but go outside or walk the perimeter of your property, walk around your house, or even vacant properties, and think like a criminal. If you were to break into your home, where would be the easiest point to do so? And then by thinking through that, those types of things, then you can work to mitigate those risks. Always love, and there's so much proof out. This that I've told was from Jason Hansen's book, Spy Secrets That Can Save Your Life, but it's been proven time and time again that there are psychological and physical tricks to add to the security of your home just by having a home security sign alone. There may not be a security camera in the entire property, but just having a sign can be a deterrent. Same thing with a dog. You may not have one, but beware of dog can be a deterrent. And then visible cameras, of course, will trigger that, uh-oh, I have accountability, I do not have anonymity, and so that can be a strong deterrent. You know, these days, I don't know if you all have been, you know, you can go into any of the big box, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's, and you can find, you know, you can install your own security system. Ring doorbells have become a big thing, not hard to install. Pruning back our bushes and shrubbery that can be a place for, you know, predators to hide. There are different things, floodlights, automated, or I should say lights that are triggered by movement can all be helpful things. And the great thing is not only is this for us, right? You can not, and you do it because it's genuine. We don't want anything bad to happen to any of our clients. And so think of the value add in putting safety awareness and education as part of your professionalism. I get fired up about it because in showing, in my opinion, talking to someone about safety is one of the kindest things you can do for them because you are showing them how much you value them. I will say at this point, I've made it through the presentation. I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to share my heart. I'm so sorry for those tech issues that we had there at the beginning. Please note that your safety is 100% non-negotiable. It's the most important thing. And the reason why I created this presentation is because I don't want what happened to my mom to happen to you. Even though I may not know you, I care so deeply, and I want you to get home safely to your families each and every day. So for the little bit of time we have left, if we have any questions, I'll be happy to take any questions, but please know how grateful I am for this opportunity.
Hi, Carl. Thank you so much. This is Brianne. You did have a few questions come in. The first, and there was some great chatter going on here in the chat feature. Members were trying to help each other. There were some questions about where to locate those emergency settings on the iPhones and Androids. It looked like the most common answer was under the settings feature, but if you had anything else to add to that question came up a few times.
Absolutely. So what we can do, Brianne, if you're okay with it, is I have a great resource that has step-by-step, and if we could just, we may not leave it out there long, but if we could just put it out where this webinar will be, then it'll show you exactly the steps that you need to take, because they are, sometimes they're 3 or 4 layers deep, and it would be a little cumbersome for us to do it now. But we could definitely put that out there for a little bit. So
absolutely, let's do that. Absolutely. Yeah. Good deal. Okay, another question was if you could share the federal website that you mentioned when you were talking about scams.
Oh, absolutely. So if you will go to, it's www, of course, consumer.ftc for Federal Trade Commission .gov. And so start there. And then you'll be able to see you'll be able to see a lot, probably more than you want to see. But from that site, if you search, scams, coronavirus, mortgage scams, you're going to see a lot. It's very, very eye-opening.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Also, some questions about that Team Store webpage, which was shared again in the chat. If you wouldn't mind resharing that.
Oh, absolutely. So It's www.narteamstore.realtor. And then if you add /COVID-19, all one word, so narteamstore.realtor /COVID-19, that's where you'll see all that PPE, and you'll see there are like 6 different options for masks, multiple options for everything. And like I said, you can customize too, so it's really great.
Wonderful, thank you. You also got, I had a request to share the scripts for asking for an ID. Do you have anything like that?
You bet I do. So if I may, can we have that as another resource that we put out?
Absolutely, yes.
Happy to share that. And so what I have 3, in the reference that I'll send, it has 3 different ways that the conversation could go. And so it shows you how to navigate and overcome objections related to sharing your ID.
Wonderful. Okay, and then we're getting a few more questions coming. I think we have time for maybe one more. This one came in, what do you recommend to carry on your person as a personal device that would help deter a criminal?
So this is tough, right? Because the thing that I will say here, and this, I know this is going to sound like a crazy answer, do not have any protective item on your body that you are not trained and willing to use. Whether that is mace or a firearm, or, people have these tactical pins or tactical flashlights. I watched this amazing presentation last week of how someone took an iPhone, a phone charger, and they turned it into a nunchuck, and they're like, she would literally have destroyed someone, but most of us don't have that skill set. So I think that it comes down to being very realistic about what we have the skill set to use. If I had to say anything that would apply to every agent, is that it starts with your shoes. And this is easy for me to say because I'm a marathon runner, so I am always going to choose flight. And so if something looks shady, I want to have good shoes on so I can run.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And I'm also seeing more responses in the chat feature as well. So I think this has been an incredible webinar. Thank you so very much, Carl. And we did get a couple of questions about when we're saying that we're going to share these resources with you, everyone, we're going to share them on nar.realtor /safety. We will have a recording of this webinar as well as the additional resources that Carl was just sharing.
And Brianne, is the last thing that I'll add. I know probably there are a lot of people that joined us today because of my mother and honoring my mother, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carl. We really appreciate you sharing your story, sharing these very helpful tips with everyone. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure. Stay safe, everyone.